Welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue and complete our R.2 notes today. We are at number properties. The main number properties that we'll talk about are the commutative property, the associative property, and then the distributive property. So a reminder that commutative property of addition or multiplication, means that, for example, 3 plus 2 is equal to 2 plus 3. Or 4 times 6 is equal to 6 times 4. The associative property involves moving parentheses. So if I have 1 plus 5 plus 7, that would be the same as 1 plus 5 plus 7. Or if we're talking about multiplication, 2 times 6 times 3 would be the same as 2 times 6 times 3. And then the distributive property, distributing from the outside to the inside, and you can have either adding or subtracting in with that property. Example 4. We can rewrite this first problem using the associative property to be 6 plus 9 plus x. 6 plus 9 is 15, and so that would be simplified form. For number 2, we can again use the associative property to change this to 5/8 times 16 times y. 5/8 times 16, remember I can cross reduce 8 and 16. So we're left with just 5 times 2, which is 10, and we have 10y. Last but not least, I can switch around the negative 10 p and make that negative 10 times 6/5 times p. 5 and the 10 reduce to 2 and 1. Negative 2 times 6 is negative 12 times p. We can rewrite these using the distributive property. Distribute the 3, we would have 3x plus 3y. These are not like terms, so I can't do anything more with that to simplify to a single term. For number 2, that negative in front is the same as a negative 1 times m minus 4n. So if we distribute that negative 1, we have negative 1m and positive 4n. For number 3, we don't have any distributing to do. However, 7 and 21 do have a common factor. Remember, common factors are values that we can divide both of them evenly by. And so I can divide both of those expressions by 7. So that reduces that to p plus 3. For number 4, if I'm distributing, remember when I'm distributing fractions and I'm multiplying fractions, we do not need common denominators and we multiply straight across. So 1/3 times 4/5, we have 1 times 4 is 4, 3 times 5 is 15 with the m. 1 times 3 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6n. And then minus, we can make 27 into a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it. 1 times 27 is 27. 3 times 1 on the bottom is 3. We'll go through and check to see if we can reduce. 4/15 I cannot reduce, so we leave the 4/15 m. 3/6 we can reduce to 1/2, so we have 1/2 n. And then 27/3, we can divide 27 by 3 evenly, which makes it 9. And so this would be our final simplified answer. We have no other like terms to be able to combine. Order on the number line in absolute value. Remember, absolute value is the distance on a number line to and from 0. Absolute value is always positive. The only exception is if there is a negative in front of the absolute value sign. So the absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of -5 is 5. But here we have a negative sign in front of the absolute value. So that stays. We cannot add the opposite here. Absolute value signs are not like parentheses. We can't distribute over that. So we first start with the absolute value of the -5 is 5. Bring that negative sign down, so that's the time when the answer would be -5. Let's try a couple. Example 1, the absolute value of -5/8 is 5/8. 2, the absolute value of 8 is 8. This negative is on the outside, so we bring that down, and the answer would be -8. Again, starting on the inside of the absolute value of -2 is 2. The one on the outside has to come down, so the answer is -2. 4 is telling us first to plug pi in for x, so the absolute value of 2 pi. Again, whatever is in the inside, the absolute value is that, just making sure that it's positive. If we are evaluating here for number 5, plugging in -6 for x and 10 for y. First, we have to do the math inside the absolute value. Then we can take the absolute value. So we don't do anything with the absolute value till the very end. 2 times -6 is -12. Minus 3 times 10 is 30. Still have the absolute value signs around that. -12 minus 30 is -42 in the absolute value. And then the absolute value of -42 is +42. For number 6, remember we treat the top and the bottom of the fraction, or the numerator and the denominator, separately before we compare them together. So 2 times the absolute value of -6. Let me fix that. Minus the absolute value of 3 times 10 over the absolute value of -6 times 10. On the top, we start with the absolute values. You have to do the math inside first, remember. So 2 times 6 for the absolute value of -6, minus 3 times 10 is 30. The absolute value of 30 is 30. Over -6 times 10 is -60. And the absolute value of -60 is +60. Two times -6 on the top is 12. So we have 12 minus 30 over 60. 12 minus 30 is -18. So we have -18 over 60. And then we always want to leave things in simplest form. So 18 and 60 have a common factor of 6. When we reduce that, we end up with -3/10 for an answer. The distance order really won't matter with the absolute value. So if we want to know the distance between -5 and 8, we can do the absolute value of -5 minus 8. -5 minus 8 is -13. The absolute value of -13 is 13. Or we can do 8 minus -5. Now remember, in this case, we do the math inside, and that's the only reason why we can add the opposite right there. 8 plus 5 is 13. The absolute value of 13 is 13. That takes care of the rest of our R.2 notes. Hope you have a great rest of your day today, and we'll see you next time.